Many of you have asked me about a potential lawsuit with HIMS and HERS Health, meaning let's assume HIMS does get sued by NVO and the lawsuit was successful, HIMS was found guilty, and HIMS was no longer be able to compound any product. Like 50 or 60% of their subscribers are on a personalized subscription, and personalized means they use some kind of a compounded product, and if HIMS can no longer compound any product, then HIMS could lose like 50 or 60% of their revenues, and this would pretty much kill the HIMS business model. So what would happen to HIMS then? What would be my thesis? What would happen to the stock? This is a major risk, and many of you guys have this concern, and if you have this concern, you're not alone, and this is a very legit concern, and many people do have this concern, including a very smart investor on YouTube, Daniel Pronk. I watch his video, very smart person, and his last video, he did speak about the same exact subject, and he did a deep dive on the company, and I highly encourage you to check out his latest video. But he also said that he has better investments elsewhere, and he's kind of moving on to better investments, and this is something that I do all the time. But he's also not alone. I mean, the company has 34% short interest. 34% is very high. Like, yes, they could be making a mistake, but a lot of those investors are not stupid. I mean, those short sellers are a little bit smart. Like, they have a thesis on why they're shorting HIMS. They're not shorting it just because it's overvalued or just because it's up. They're shorting it because they're betting on some kind of a scenario happening. And the scenario could be NVO suing HIMS and HIMS being found guilty or something happening around this situation. And this is what I'm going to assess today. So I really hope you enjoy it as always. Now, first, I'm going to get started by reviewing something that a lot of you guys don't really know about. And this is a latest lawsuit from NVO against a different compounding pharmacy, the same situation as HIMS. And this compounding pharmacy has been compounding GLP-1 the same way HIMS has been doing it, and they kind of accused it for selling it in bulk or mass, selling GLP-1s or whatever. But this time, the judge reviewed the case in Florida, and they found NVO that they have no proof of that. Like, the whole thing was made up, and they were found not guilty. And this is what the article says. It says, Wegovy maker NVO faces fee demand after losing copycat drug lawsuit. Danish drug maker NVO is facing a request for hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney fees after a judge dismissed its lawsuit against a Florida pharmacy for selling products containing semaglutide, the active ingredients in its blockbuster weight loss and diabetes drug Wegovy and Ozempic. It's the same kind of setup that HIMS and HERS Health has. So if NVO sues HIMS or take legal action against HIMS, it doesn't mean that HIMS is going to be found guilty. It doesn't mean that this is the end of HIMS. And NVO and Eli Lilly, they're suing everyone because they've been losing market share to companies like HIMS and even RO Health, Ro Health, and a few other companies that have been taking advantage of the law. It's not breaking the law. They're just doing it by the law, and they're still doing it by the law, and they've been doing it by the law since 2016, and no one has done nothing about it. So to me, the whole thing is very interesting. But then I'm going to look at a few things. Then I'm going to assess the worst case scenario where if was to be found guilty, what I believe will likely happen to the company, and if they could potentially come out of it and turn it around. But the way I look at HIMS and HERS Health, and I look at how the CEO, which he's a founder CEO, very important, founder CEO, the way he's conducting himself, he's going on Yahoo Finance and going on Bloomberg, retweeting the article even. And he's saying HIMS and HERS won't back down from selling cheap weight loss shots, and he's retweeting it. And he's going against NVO, saying NVO is suffering from sales and they're making things up. And he's like going after NVO and after the CEO of NVO and the management team. Like, he's really confident. You go on the website, the HIMS website, the first thing you see is compounded GLP-1 at $165. The second thing you see is liraglutide. The last thing you see on the website is Wegovy and Ozempic. Like, the way you look at how he's conducting himself, like, what brings him so much confidence? Why is he so confident? What does he know? And in my opinion, the reason why he's so confident, the main reason why he didn't give in to NVO's demand is because he's doing something right. It's because he knows that the standards of HIMS are very high, he knows what he's doing, and he knows that he's doing everything by the law. And I believe he is confident that NVO and Lilly can't do anything about it. So this is why the CEO of HIMS, he's conducting himself in this way. If he was doing something outside the law, if he was doing something wrong, I believe he would be smart enough to have given in NVO's demands, partner with NVO, and then put the past behind him, get rid of it, keep his job as CEO, avoid any lawsuits, and then just move on for the long term. I believe this is what he would have done, and he's clearly smart, he's not stupid. But the main reason why he's acting so confident through his statements and everything is because he's confident that he's not doing anything wrong, and the NVO can't do anything about it. So to me, the way I look at it is, and I look at many of the HIMS board and executives, like the executive that came from Amazon, Nader Kabbani, which has started Amazon Pharmacy. He launched Amazon Pharmacy within Amazon, and he's now the COO of HIMS. And you have many of those very smart executives joining the company. They wouldn't be ruining their reputation joining a company that's doing something wrong, or that could be sued for doing something wrong. So the way I look at it is, I highly, highly doubt that the CEO is doing something wrong that could cause him into trouble just to maximize short-term profits. I highly, highly doubt it. It's possible. It has happened with many companies, but the way I'm looking at the whole setup, and he had a chance to fix it out and then move on from his mistake if he made a mistake through partnering with NVO, but he chose to move on from them and go on his own, because I believe he knows he's not doing anything wrong. Now, I'm going to talk about a few things related to HIMS legality in terms of compounding GLP-1s and compounding many different things, because HIMS doesn't only compound GLP-1s, they compound, even the oral pills are compounded, and they compound many different things. Okay, now HIMS has two main facilities. They have a 503A facility and a 503B facility. And this could get a little bit complicated, so I use some AI, and I'm going to read to you what the AI is telling me. And it says HIMS and HERS can still use their 503B facility to compound other medications in bulk. This is very important, in bulk, if they are on the FDA shortage list or meet clinical need exemptions. For non-shortage drug, they may shift to their 503A facilities for patient-specific prescriptions, which are more limited in scale but allow customizations. So the 503A facilities, they allow more customization, but they are more limited in scale. 503Bs, they are less limited in scales, but they don't allow as much customizations, and they are more stricter on FDA's kind of oversight, and there's many annual inspections on the 503B facilities, and HIMS always passes those inspections and everything is good around them. So HIMS has invested millions of dollars on the 503A and 503B facilities for them to have the flexibility to compound those GLP-1s and compound those drugs under a personalized subscription. And I don't believe they're breaking the law or doing anything wrong around it. Now let's assume that the government or something happens, they decide to limit the amount of, let's say, personalized subscriptions available. I highly doubt that would happen, because the main reason why compounding exists is to meet clinical needs. So some, or special needs, you could say. So some people, they have side effects against the legacy drug. Let's say the Ozempic kind of injections. They have side effects against it. So HIMS and HERS would mitigate those side effects because they have special needs. So if they limit the amount of people that could use a compounded prescription or a personalized prescription, they would be discriminating against people that have special needs or critical needs. So to me, the whole thing wouldn't really make sense for the FDA or for whoever to try to limit the amount of personalized kind of subscriptions. So to me, the whole thing doesn't really make sense in this regard, and I'm just not saying how this could potentially happen. It's possible, but I'm not really saying how it could happen for HIMS and HERS Health. But let's assume it does happen, and something happens, and they decide, the government decides that HIMS can no longer compound any kind of drugs, and the whole thing is over, and HIMS loses 50% or 60% of their revenues. Can HIMS really come out of it? I believe HIMS could come out of it, okay? And I'm going to tell you how. The first thing is, if you notice, HIMS has been diversifying away from compounded prescriptions. they rolled out generic liraglutide. Generic liraglutide is not related to any kind of compounding facilities. It doesn't require some kind of a personalized compounded prescription or whatever. It doesn't apply to any kind of compounding. So let's say they can no longer sell GLP-1s. They can no longer sell oral pills. They can still sell liraglutide for $300 a month, which is much cheaper than Ozempic or Wegovy at $2,000 a month, or even on Wegovy's Direct or NVO Direct at like $600 a month. Liraglutide is still cheaper at $300 a month. So HIMS would still have a product to sell, as they have many different products that aren't actually on a compounded kind of fortune. So HIMS can easily diversify away from it. This is the first one. The second one is HIMS has recently acquired a company called Zava, which is a telehealth kind of company in the UK, Germany, France, Ireland, and mainly a telehealth company in Europe. Okay, very important. It serves 1.3 million people. Very important. Now, this company in Europe, which serves 1.3 million people, almost 50% of the subscribers of HIMS, 1.3 million people, has nothing to do with the whole compounding scheme in the United States. So let's say they lose access in the United States, they could do a lot of things in Europe. They can benefit massively from this business in Europe, which I believe they likely paid $300 million for. So if they had 1.3 billion in cash, they paid 300 million in Europe, they diversified away from the US business, which is compounding focused. They have this new business, and they still have $1 billion of cash that they could use for them to potentially diversify away from the compounding business if they can no longer compound any products. So I'm not really worried about HIMS potential at all. If they can no longer compound any products, they still have 2.2 million people in the United States, 1.3 million people in Europe, and those people are growing every single month, every single quarter. And they have liraglutides, they have many different kind of products that are not related to compounding, and they have $1 billion in cash for them to diversify further away from compounded products. They also have many businesses that are growing. They have the at-home lab testing and lab facility, which they acquired in February. This is still a small business that's going to grow. They have the peptide facility, which is a massive research facility that's going to do a lot of things within pain management and muscle recovery. This is still a small business that's going to diversify them away from just compounded kind of products. So no matter how I look at it, I just don't see HIMS really getting into any legal troubles with NVO. I think that's short-term noise. But if they do get into legal trouble, I don't believe they will be found guilty of anything crazy. But if they were found guilty, I still don't believe it's going to cause them to lose their compounding rights, or it's going to cause them to close compounding for everyone in the United States. It would be crazy. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they will likely have to pay some fines and everything will be fine. I don't think it's going to be crazy. So maybe they will pay some fines and then they can no longer maybe compound GLP-1, so they could just sell liraglutide easy. No big deal. And they can lower liraglutide and sell it. Easy money. Okay, let's assume they also can't do that. They can't compound anything anymore. The company still has a Europe business, 1.3 million people. They still have $1 billion in cash, and they still have the lab facility, which is growing, the peptide facility, and other kind of drugs which are not compounded that can diversify them away from compounded products. So as a HIMS shareholder, I am not really worried about the NVO lawsuit. It is a risk, of course. I'm not downplaying it. I think it's a concern. Of course, the stock could go lower. A lot of things could happen, especially in the healthcare space, a lot of unknown things. No matter how much research we do, we don't really know what's going to happen. No matter how much I search with AI and I search on the FDA's website and I search on the internet, we can't really know all the details about everything. And it's mainly a trust in the management, but it's also a trust in our own ability, which is why I always tell you guys with HIMS and as many of those growth stocks, don't put your entire portfolio in HIMS or in SoFi or in Robinhood, and put in a small percentage of your portfolio. So if you're right, you make a lot of money. If you're wrong, you don't lose too much. And that's what I did with HIMS when I bought it in 2023. And that's what I did with Robinhood. That's what I do with all those stocks. And I just size them accordingly. And I encourage you to do the same. And that was just my opinion on HIMS, not financial advice. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, please press the like button and maybe consider subscribing. So I'll talk to you in another video.